morning. Another day, another real-world test. Today we're doing it on the Helm Bike, which is like a stealthy little e-bike. Now, this is the first e-bike real-world test that I've done on the channel, and I kind of figured, well, for the first bike review, why not go check out the first bike path ever in the US? Now, if you're not familiar, I'm gonna use this device throughout the day. We'll check in on the battery. We'll also test the performance and just kind of talk about some of the features I like and don't like, all while exploring somewhere new. But first things first. Coffee. Check. Okay, we made it to a coffee shop in my neighborhood called Blank Street. Gonna catch up with Dad for a bit right before we head out on this journey. And the cafe's called Blank Street because essentially it's a collection of carts that serve coffee throughout my neighborhood, and I'm sure they're expanding further than that. And so it could be on any street, Blank Street. But this one is kind of like their flagship location, I would say, and it's in an old restaurant that I actually used to come to. It was a Mexican restaurant a long time ago, but it has this nice little outdoor spot, and the coffee's good. But while we're here, I think we need a little bit of background on e-bikes. Now, e-bikes are generally considered a bicycle with pedals that then has an electric motor either in the hub of the back wheel, like this one, or in the center of the bike called mid-drive, usually, that helps with pedaling. They either use a cadence or a torque sensor to tell when you're pedaling and how hard you're pedaling in the case of the torque sensor, and then it uses that to determine how much assistance and power to give you. And for each of those varieties, there are pros and cons, but that's the general gist. Some also have a throttle of some sort that allows you to use the bike sort of like a electric motorcycle, in that you can push the throttle and go without needing to pedal. Now, here in the US, the federal rules define a, quote, low-speed electric bicycle as a 2- or 3-wheeled vehicle with fully operational pedals and a top speed when solely powered by the motor of 20 miles per hour or 32 kilometers an hour, and an electric motor under 750 watts. Anything fitting into that category essentially falls under bicycle. Anything above that category is technically a motor vehicle, which means you need a driver's license and it needs to be registered. You can only drive it on the street, etc. Now, it's all important to note because it's a big reason why there's been a recent spike in e-bikes here in the US. And when you're trying to choose one of those e-bikes, you'll realize that they all kind of sit around that limit. And so that keeps them all similar in that way. But they do differ, with that difference usually coming down to the different motors that I talked about, along with the power of those motors, and the battery size, the frame and the look, and also the philosophy of the company making the bike as to what the bike should be and how it fits in this rapidly expanding market of e-bikes. But while we're out on this journey today, why don't we have today's sponsor clean the apartment? This is the Narwal T10, a clever 2-in-1 robot vacuum and mop, and winner of one of Time's best inventions of 2020. It's easy to set up. You simply plug in the base, open the app, and connect the robot to Wi-Fi, and then just tell it to map your place. Now, unlike most robot vacuums that just bounce randomly across the room and hope they get everything, the T10 uses its LiDAR to see all of the walls and furniture in the house and make a map of it all, so it can then use that to efficiently plan out its route to clean every inch. And since it has LiDAR, it can identify different rooms, which you can customize and tell it to just clean a specific area if you need, as well as recognize furniture, even if it's moved, along with anything else on the floor to avoid it and clean around it. And with a quick swap of the magnetized modules on the bottom, you can go from smart vacuum to smart mop in seconds. And thanks to sensors that tell it when its mop is dirty, it'll head back to the base station automatically, suck up the dirty water into a special tank, have clean water with a special detergent re-soak the mop, and go right back out until the job is done. If you want to learn more about the Narwal T10, check out the link below in the description, and thanks to Narwal for sponsoring this video. All right, and right now we are headed to Prospect Park first from my house, so it's a bit of a ride just for that, and then we'll head to the beginning of our first ever bike path. Welcome to Prospect Park. Park. Now this is kind of the largest park in Brooklyn, largest popular park in Brooklyn, and it's popular for, running and bike riding, as well as a really cool loop that goes around it that a lot of people do. And if you're a fan of the channel, you probably already recognize it because I came here for my Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 video. If not, I'll leave a link below to that. Check it out. Also, if you like these types of videos, that video, subscribe, ding the bell next to the word subscribe. That way you'll get notified when I do new videos. But while we're here, let's talk about how the Helm Bike approached all of those things we just talked about. So it has a limit of 18 miles per hour listed on the site, which is the speed that they're saying that you can use the thumb throttle on the left handle by pushing it forward to get to without pedaling. The motor is a 250 watt brushless hub motor, so it's back here in the back wheel, and it's using a cadence sensor, not a torque sensor, for judging how you're pedaling and how much power to give you. We have an aluminum frame and forks, and it's all painted in this matte black finish, which I like. We have cables for everything routed partially through the frame just to keep everything cleaner looking, and we have a chain with 7 speeds. We then have our battery in the middle that slides in and locks with a key, but of course can be taken off to sit under or even on your desk at work or wherever to charge with the included charging brick without needing to bring the bike to a plug, which is nice. And that means you can just leave the bike locked up outside, or maybe like in your office building's bike room or your apartment building's bike room, whatever. Take off the battery, bring that inside, and charge it that way. Now on the handlebar, we have a bell that I personally don't like because it rotates where the button is. And obviously that's to make it more customizable for wherever you would want it. But to me, it doesn't stay where you put it. And I constantly find myself just searching for the bell, and that's probably not good. On the other handlebar, we have our tiny controller with an LCD screen. There's no fancy touchscreen. There's actually no app of any kind even. There's only a button to turn it on and off, a button to check your trip and other stats, and an up and down arrow to switch between the different pedal assist modes. Now these go from 1 to 5, with 1 being no assistance basically, and 5 being the most assistance. Now personally to me, I feel like 1 and 2 don't really do anything. 3 is kind of where the assistance starts in my book, and I'll leave it on 3 when I'm in a more crowded area because I don't want it to give me as much push whenever I do a pedal. But most of the time I leave it on 5 because for me, if I want assistance, I want as much as it'll possibly give me. I can always control that with how much I'm pedaling, but that's just kind of how I found myself using it. Also on that handlebar, we have our throttle that I mentioned. And now taking that from a dead stop, it takes about 10 seconds to get to the top speed, which I found is usually around 17, more so than it is 18, but that could just be the calibration of the LCD on this unit that I'm borrowing. But I like that little throttle. I use it a lot more than I thought I would. It's great for when you're stopped at a stop sign or a red light or whatever and it just turns green and you just want to quickly get moving. I don't use it for very long, maybe for just a tiny bit, and then I just start to pedal, but it's kind of a nice way of getting started. Also, when I'm feeling real lazy, I just kind of you can just use that to cruise. You don't have to pedal if you don't want. It's nice. But honestly, looking at this bike, if it weren't for that tiny controller and the battery, which almost kind of looks like a water bottle to me, you wouldn't know this was an electric bike. It just kind of looks like a nice street bike. And that right there kind of feels like the philosophy behind this bike. It seems like it's meant to just be, first and foremost, a nice street commuter bike that just happens to have the ability to use electricity to move. Welcome to the start of the Ocean Parkway bike path. In the 1860s, landscape architects Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, the duo behind Central Park and Prospect Park that we were just in, designed and proposed the Ocean Parkway to the Brooklyn Park Commissioners as a way to get from Prospect Park to Coney Island. Included in that plan was a very wide pedestrian walkway. And around then, the penny farthing was kind of the pinnacle of bicycle technology and wasn't very good, so nobody really thought about bikes. But fast forward to 1894, with the more modern bicycle design having taken off and become much more popular, the decision was made to split that giant sidewalk into pedestrian and bikes. And the first ever bike path in the country was born. And its popularity inspired other major cities across the US and the world to create bike paths of their own. Now before we set off though, let's talk a little bit more about this bike. Firstly, the seat, not the most comfortable seat I've ever ridden on. After maybe like 20 minutes or so, it starts to hurt me, at least. Also, same thing for the grips on the handlebars. They don't have a lot of cushion to them. Now, part of that though is because I'm not used to this type of bike. Now, this is, again, like a road street bike, and so the position that you ride in is a little hunched forward, and that's kind of just the way those are. I prefer like a taller handlebar. That's just me though. If you're used to this type of bike, that probably won't be an issue for you. And speaking of that, this is a like road street type of bike. Because of that also, the crossbar is pretty high. Now, I'm 5'10", just about, and this is the 55 centimeter model. It also comes in a 60 centimeter model. And I really have to lift my leg pretty high, especially if I'm wearing pants, to get over that crossbar. Once I do though, it is the perfect height for me. Standing on it, stopping is easy. I'm not on my tippy toes or anything like that. So it's really just something for you to know if you're trying to decide between the two. Okay, and now let's get away from this super loud highway, essentially, that I'm sitting on trying to film, and start our 5-mile journey to Coney Island. Welcome to Coney Island. I gotta say, not a bad view to like get to at the end of that bike path for sure. But Coney Island, while we don't have a lot of time to explore today, is home to like the Wonder Wheel, which you may have seen, which is kind of like a Ferris wheel that the cars rock back and forth at different points. It's pretty interesting. As well as the Cyclone, which is one of the oldest wooden roller coasters in the US to this day. And also home to Nathan's, the hot dog place. You might know them because of their hot dog eating competition that they sponsor every year. I just was really craving a hot dog after that long bike ride, so.
It was a good hot dog. Is it worth $5? I'm hungry though, doesn't matter.
One thing I didn't notice about that bike path, I don't think the city's serviced it since 1894. There are some parts of it that are just really bumpy, like the just giant cracks in the sidewalk. Not very pleasant to ride over. Brings a point about the bike. There are no shocks on it. Again, it is a very much just a normal street bike. But there's something really interesting about the fact that this is based on and basically one of those normal road bikes. And that's that you can kind of change anything you want on it pretty easily. So for example, those grips, you can just buy standard grips and replace them. I can get some squishier ones that probably won't hurt as much. Also, same thing for the seat, obviously. Beyond that, you can even get a riser, like a normal one for a normal bike, to raise the handlebars to a position that I probably would like more. Or if you want, completely swap out the handlebars with any other normal bike handlebars. Basically, everything on the handlebars, like the controller, the bell, the brakes, can all just come off with a regular like Allen key or a screwdriver, and you can put them onto any other handlebars. And the same thing goes for the fenders. If you wanted to put a basket on the back, you could do that. A basket on the front, etc., etc. You can go to most normal bike shops and actually customize this using normal bike parts, and even repair most of the bike that way as well. At least all besides the electric motor that is in that back wheel hub and the battery, which is something you can't really do on a lot of e-bikes. Now on top of that, it's one of the lightest e-bikes that you can buy, so if you needed to carry it upstairs or move it around, it's easy enough to do. Now it's not crazy light, don't get me wrong, but compared to other e-bikes, it's pretty light. And again, all of this kind of just further pushes that kind of mentality and the philosophy behind the company that makes this bike. It is, first and foremost, that street bike, and a decent street bike with 7 gears and good brakes and a lightweight frame, etc. And it just happens to have electric power. Now, it's not the fastest up to its limited speed, like just doesn't have as much torque as a lot of the other e-bikes out there. It also doesn't have as much range as some of the other e-bikes out there. But I think all of that is by design. They wanted this bike to be an e-bike for people who really like to bike and maybe just once in a while or in certain occasions would like to get somewhere without having to work up a sweat. Maybe commute to and from work, but then also not use the motor a decent amount of time and use it as a bike for a workout or a ride or whatever else you would want to do. But the question is there a demographic for that? Now though, let's turn around and head back home. I have a dinner to make tonight, and let's see how far the battery takes it.
I think that error means I ran out of battery.
Here's where we are on the map, and that translates to a little over 15 miles, which is the bottom of the bike's range.
but that frankly makes a lot of sense, is I had it set to 5 out of 5 the entire time, and I used the throttle a lot.
But one of the nice things about e-bikes, especially ones like this, is they're kind of like escalators, right? They run out of power and they just become stairs. You can still use them. And this one in particular, well, now here's the part of the ride where I test how it does as an actual normal bike. All right, well, so far, I will say that I like the shifter. It has like an up and a down that are very easy to get to from the right handlebar, and also has like a tensioner, so you don't have to stop pedaling whenever you do shift. It just automatically does it for you. It's very smooth, it's quick. I like it so far. But I will say, it is a lot harder, obviously, to pedal without that electric assist, and I'm missing it right now because I'm nowhere near home yet. Back to my neighborhood.
Okay, calling it a night. The performance of the bike when it doesn't have electricity is like any other, 7-speed road bike. It feels like a normal, proper bike. And again, I think that's kind of what they were going for with this. That road bike with the power when you want it. Now with that in mind, I'm probably not the demographic for this bike. I fully am aware and admit that. I usually just use a bike for commuting. I don't really use it for exercise. If I'm going to do exercise on a bike, it's probably a stationary bike in the gym. It's just more efficient for me, and I'm kind of an efficiency nerd, so that's just the way I would go about it. But I do see how this could be appealing to certain people that are the type that identify as cyclists. And sure, the bike doesn't have the fastest acceleration of a bike in this range. It also doesn't have the longest battery range, for that matter. But again, I think all of those things were choices to make the bike lighter and more like an actual normal street bike. And considering the bike is $1,500, some specialized like road bikes are around that price anyway. So if you're looking to buy a nice bike, maybe under that price range by a little bit or around that price range, and you find that the features you were looking for in that are already on this bike, then to pay a little extra to have the option to use the battery and use the electric motor, I don't know, that seems kind of cool. But you guys let me know. I'm curious. Any of you out there consider yourself cyclists? Would you use this bike instead of a road bike? Tell me why or why not. Honestly, again, I'm not really the demographic. But also, let me know what you guys thought of this video. Would you like to see me do more like e-bikes and electric scooters and transportation and just maybe cars? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Always appreciate hearing from you guys. Also, check me out on Instagram. Follow me there for some behind the scenes stuff and other tests that I do there, and subscribe to the channel here if you liked what you saw, and ding the bell next to where subscribe so you get notified when I do new videos. As always though, regardless, thanks for watching.